a quorum. I know Susie Tirado is going to be a few minutes late. I'm sure Tracy will be coming too. But let's get started with the first order of business, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sort of a diminutive flag.
So the next item on the agenda are approval of the Board of Education meeting minutes, and I would entertain a motion to approve the February 13th, 2019 minutes.
I second that.
No, I need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion. We accept.
Motion made by Ilda. Second by Jaime. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed. The next one are the February 20th, 2019 special meeting minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion. We accept the February 20th meeting minutes.
Ilda made the motion. Do I get a second?
Meeting.
Second by Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed. And then March 6, 2019 workshop meeting minutes. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Mary, seconded by?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ilda. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Any no votes? Abstentions? One abstention from Mike. Okay, so now we're on to public comment, and the first person who signed up is Kathleen Brillon. I'm not sure I pronounced your last name correctly. You can say it correctly, please.
It's Brillin, that's fine.
Okay.
Good evening. As she said, my name is Kathleen Brillin. I'm an art teacher over at Windham Middle School. And please excuse me, it's my first time speaking at one of these, so I'm a little nervous. I'm here because the middle school needs help. The behaviors are just out of control, and we are not seeing the discipline that goes along with it being enforced. I will say that 95% of our students are amazing, and they're awesome. And what's happening is the 5% that are disruptive are keeping the education from the other 95%. And the problem we're having, there are teachers that are becoming ill. We work so hard. And we've kept it together up until it's March, you know, and we've been trying to keep it together. And when we're being sworn at on a daily basis, when kids are leaving our classroom and security is called, and then they end up skipping the next two classes and there's no consequences to be seen, when teachers are having full-blown panic attacks, and a vice principal will come by and say, "Are you okay?" And a teacher will say no, and they walk away. They're taking the students' word over teachers. Kids are running around the halls, kicking lockers, disrupting classes, yelling into classrooms. And then when they get called into the office, they take the child's word saying, well, he said he didn't do it. We need help. We need consequences to be taken and given for these actions. We're exhausted. Do I think Adina students or some other admin will be helpful to our school? Absolutely. But until they hand out consequences for actions, you could have 12 administrators there, and nothing's going to change. We love our students. We really do. And it hurts me that I have to, I don't want to say the word babysit, but it seems that's what I spend most of my classes. I cannot go around and help so many students because I'm so busy dealing with behaviors. And that hurts me because I'm a teacher. And that's what I do, is help students. And I'm so nervous, but I can't. We can't keep it this way. We can't. We need help.
Well, thank you for coming and speaking to us during public comment. Since this is your first time doing this, we're not allowed to have back and forth conversation with people who speak to us during public comment, but we do listen to everything that people say to us, and I'm sure we'll be taking this topic up at a later meeting.
I appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I have the list right in front of me. The next person is Elizabeth Prose.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Prose. I live in Willimantic. 3 of my children attended from pre-K to grade 12, and all were very well prepared by the Windham Public Schools for life and college. I'm representing the teachers union today to support the budget that Dr. Garcia has worked hard to put together with our school governance councils, the unions, and I want to highlight that a lot of the programming that deals directly with children is still in place, and then she is actually expanding programs that I think will serve very well the students of Willimantic and Windham by increasing the one-way dual language program, the bilingual program, increasing technology and textbooks.
Thank you very much. There's nobody else signed up to speak. Oh, okay, sure, come on up.
So my name is Kate Sword. I have a child in 7th grade at the middle school. I didn't actually intend to speak today, but I just wanted to thank you for coming up because, I'm asked on a pretty regular basis, what do I think about the middle school, and if there's kids that don't go to Windham and that are living here and they want to send their kids, what do I think? And I have always given it a positive review because my son gratefully has not encountered or experienced some of the horrible things that I do know that goes on. Whether I hear it from other families or other kids that have experienced it, and I don't know. I just can empathize how difficult it is for somebody to come up here and be in front of this group and be concerned about themselves, be concerned about their career. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I just hope that, that this does not, I know it's not falling on deaf ears, but we have to figure out how to do something. And I feel like sometimes there is so much to do. How do we tackle it all? But it just has to get tackled. It just has to. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak during public comment who didn't sign up? Okay. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the superintendent's report, and I'm handing it over to you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to start by congratulating Natchar Elementary School. As you know, Natchar received the School of Distinction for the 2017-18 school year. This is really a very high honor to be a School of Distinction. And only 160 schools in the state of Connecticut receive this distinction. This is a result of the hard work of the students and the teachers and administrators and the parents, and I want to thank them as superintendent, but also personally thank them for the work that I've seen and for all the improvement that I've seen at NACHOG that have been in place by the teachers and by the students and the administration. NACHOG was able to obtain, is in the top 10% growth in the area of mathematics for high needs. I want to make sure we understand, top 10% of school in the state of Connecticut growth in the area of mathematics. This is really a testimony of the hard work, again, of the teacher, the administration, and putting in place the strategies to improve NACHOG Public School. We wish them the best, and we know that they will continue to have success. I do want to say only 43 schools a distinction are located in the Alliance District. So we are one of the few Alliance District that receive a school of distinction. So congratulations to NACHOG. Other things that we want to congratulate the middle school, for example. The middle school was highlighted and recognized for having their student-led conferences as one of the innovative strategies. And this last Friday, there were 166 schools that submitted their initiative, and only 5 of them were selected in the state of Connecticut. And the middle school student-led conferences were selected in combination with another school from Greenwich, Trumbull, Meriden, and I cannot remember the other, but there are only 5 schools in the state of Connecticut, and the middle school was one of them that were selected. We also have some students from NACHOG School, Vanity Vargas, Santana, Isabel Bordet, Chelsea Portuguese, Addison Hackman represented NACHOG School at the Frog Farmers Market, and I believe in stores on March 2, and also received lots of recognition, so we want to congratulate them. And the high school, we had a couple of high school students that were selected by the Van Shoes. They submitted their sneakers design, and only a couple schools in the country were selected, and 2 students from the high school were selected. So we want to congratulate those students. Lots of creativity around the Black History Month, particularly at the middle school and in NACHOG. We want to congratulate those students and those teachers. And North Windham principal, Elizabeth Garner, during the snow day, we want to congratulate her, was able to read to all students through Facebook, so we want to thank her. I also want to thank this opportunity to thank members of the board. This is Board Appreciation Month, and so we want to thank you for your hard work and for helping us lead the school district. So thank you to all board members.
You're fattening us up with cupcakes.
I think that's the best gift, the cupcakes. By the way, they're wonderful, I want you to know. It's my favorite place, cupcakes. So, Parent and Community University just want to make the board aware that it's one of our biggest initiative in the district to getting parents engaged. We have a different take on Parent and Community University. Used to have 2 major events. Now we only have 1 event, but then we have monthly events in the district, and I want to highlight a couple of them. Today we have the one in attendance that took place at the middle school, the importance of attendance, and we also have the other one, enhancing student dining experiences, for parents to come out and hear about the wonderful lunches that our cafeteria members prepare for students. I'm pretty sure that one is going to be a very popular one. That will take place on March 28th at Windham High School cafeteria. So parents are coming out to hear about that. We also have one, parents helping students with peer pressure, on April 27th. Takeaway, every month we have a workshop for parents in the district, and the workshop is based on feedback from parents on what they want to hear and what they want to see. SAT preparation at the high school, starting next week. We have several sessions 3 days a week to prepare students for the ACT at the high school. This takes place all during the year. Teachers have changed instructional practice to address SAT and the Common Core preparation, but we'll have some extra support for students 3 days a week from 3 to 5 o'clock. And we are looking at a Saturday academy, and we're not sure if that will go. Students prefer, based on feedback, the weekdays. We don't have that many takers for Saturday. I guess they want to sleep a little late, maybe, but nobody's is happy about Saturday. So, but we do have lots of takers for the days of the week. And in your packet, there is the high school program and study. I want to thank the high school administration, the guidance counselors, and the teachers that work very hard to prepare the program and study for the high school. And those are the tech. We had the personal development on March 8th. And in your packet, there's the professional development, again, based on the needs of different schools, feedback from the school and feedback from the teacher. There was an excellent offering that included not only people from the teaching and learning department, but also from HR and business. Mrs. Rita Parsiak, Mrs. Darlene Begato participated in presenting to staff members, and this process was led by Dr. Youngboard, and I want to thank her also for putting this together and leading this process. So thank you, Tracy, and thank you to Rita, and thank you to Darlene. I received wonderful feedback about your presentation also. So those are the superintendent reports for today.
Are there any questions for the superintendent? Yes, Tracy.
SAT prep, is that for the SAT that's being administered like April 9th?
Yeah.
Are we a little late getting started on that?
No, we have done some research and well, the one who say that we prepare for the SAT during the entire school year. So
Right.
it's not with us doing it now. There are different ways to prepare for the SAT. And one of the ways that we prepare for the SAT is making sure that we have the appropriate instructional practices in the classroom. So for example, during the entire school year, we're working with the teachers, showing them the difference between the type of question that the SAT asks and how they can ask those in the classroom. So it takes preparation during the entire year. We do also have a wind block that is during the entire school year. So this is extra support. This is not the only thing. This is an additional support that we're giving students to look at some other high leverage strategies. But the preparation for the SAT takes place all during the entire school year in different ways.
Who's going to be leading that instruction? Windham teachers?
Wyndham
Do we have it
teachers.
outside?
We have Wyndham teachers leading.
I think in the memo it says, well, it says who's, no, it doesn't say all the teachers.
No, we don't have a
Yes, it just
teacher name,
say
but we
who's
have, they are
leading,
Wyndham
who's
High School
coordinating.
teachers. It's been coordinated by Dr. Tracy Yumper.
Tracy, is that your question? Mary?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I haven't really been able to review and think about the high school program of study, but I did send some questions because I was concerned about art offerings in particular and some other offerings that seem to be diminished. We are supposed to have a STEAM high school, and I think we should build on the strong programs we currently have. And I was also somewhat curious, looking around on the website, is there a curriculum committee that involves any member of the board? Because it's not a subcommittee of the Board of Education, although I see that in Connecticut statutes, there's some requirement about establishing a school district curriculum committee, but I didn't know if board members are on that or if there's a subcommittee on curriculum.
So to answer your second question, the board doesn't have a curriculum committee. The district does have a curriculum committee, and that is led by the assistant superintendent for teaching and learning. Tracy, you want to answer that?
Sure.
Add to that?
Yeah.
And then I will answer your second question.
So, it's like karaoke.
So my department is responsible for making sure we have curriculum for all subjects that the school is responsible for teaching, and we have a variety of curriculum committee members depending on what we're focused on. So if we're working on elementary committee curriculum, we have a committee that's made up predominantly of elementary school teachers and directors and things of that nature. So it really varies who's on the committee based on what we're working on. Does that answer your question?
I think so. As I said, I was just curious about, I think these are significant changes, at least comparing last year's program of studies at the high school against this new one. And I was a little concerned, also as a parent, not knowing about this, so.
So I do have a response for you. We do have a copy. Can I respond to that question? So we do have a copy to all your questions. We can share that board member. But the first one I do want to answer regarding the culinary arts program. The change that took place in the culinary arts is that we moved to an ECE culinary arts course. So now students will have that opportunity to have an ECE course. So we do have all those culinary arts programs, but we moved one of the non-culinary arts to an ECE culinary arts. So now they will have college credit for that. And in order for that teacher to be able to teach that course, then one of the non-culinary arts were eliminated. But so I do have that response for you in the question. All of the question that you...
Do students have access to that as an elective to, not necessarily the ECE, but that
Yes.
has frequently been one, but it looked like there were no longer two different culinary classes.
Yes, students, it's a very popular course, but we also heard from the students and from students that wanted to go to college that this course also counts for college, and a lot of students want to take this in college, so we decided to offer ECE Culinary Arts, so they could have a college credit for this course. So meaning it would be the same amount of students, or the same number of students that are interested, those that one will be non-college and one will be college credit.
Ilda, you had a question or a comment?
Yes, I have a question for Miss Tracy.
Can you
Mr.
please
Ward?
talk into the mic, though, and then she can
Yes,
answer.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So how are people picked for these committees, like say the high school? Do you pick parents from the high school?
Tracy, you want to go ahead? Sure.
I haven't picked parents from the high school. We usually open it up to the high school staff if we're working on a particular topic. Obviously, in the high school, a lot of it's department-led. So if we're working on curriculum in the English department, we go to the English department and ask for volunteers. We have our high school leadership team, directors, coaches, instructional consultants. No, I have not involved parents in the curriculum writing process.
But if I may, I think it's a very easy fix. You know, the superintendent have a parent advisory committee, and actually we're meeting next week. I think we're meeting next week, the parent advisory committee. This is something that we can bring up to them, but I think this is an easy fix that we can invite parents to the curriculum committee to answer any questions and to be part of it. And also we can bring it up to the parent advisory committee. I do want to say that we invite everyone to be part of that, but we do have we have about 25 people in the superintendent parent advisory committee.
Just picking up on Mary's earlier question to that point, though, about board representation. Were you, Mary, making a suggestion that it should be open to board members who might, and I don't,
Or
who might want to serve on a committee?
Right. I don't know if it ever was a subcommittee. I just also noticed in the narratives of the budget additional information about programs and initiatives. So I suppose was a concern of mine.
Okay. Well, I think the superintendent has heard that we want to. There's some interest in opening it up. And
sure.
Did Tracy or Mark? I thought Mark. Yeah. I thought you had your hand up, and then Jaime.
Just to answer your question, yes. Pre-Dr. Anamoski, there always was a board curriculum committee.
Okay.
And the function of that committee was to hear the response from the staff curriculum. We weren't involved in actually planning the curriculum, but it was reviewed with the board, so we had input into what the curriculum should be, and then we heard what they were doing for the curriculum. In my mind, the benefit of that was it allows the board members to know, even more importantly, why do I need to spend $300,000 for more books? Why do I need to spend, or should I change this idea to this particular class or that particular class? It wasn't to do the work of the curriculum, but it certainly was to guide the curriculum and to have, it's just invaluable information, I think, for the board members to know which way the curriculum's going. When we look at the budget, it helps us put it all together.
Okay.
Well, pre-Anamoski,
we'll take that under advisement, and we're not going to correct that tonight, but it's something that I hear what people are saying. Jaime, you had something?
Yes, I just want to have a word of caution. And which do we bring to these curriculum committees? Because generally, curriculum is handled by teachers that know what they do. And if we're not very careful about it, interference may really be counterproductive for the regular curriculum process. So I say that mostly let the teachers and those in charge, take care of it, but yes, there should be an input. Nothing wrong with having an input from parents and Board of Education, but again, word of caution how you approach this process.
Okay. Anything else on this? Any other questions for Dr. Garcia? I want to commend the schools and the students and the teachers, all of the distinctions and awards and things of that sort that you outlined for us in your report. It's always very nice to hear that good news.
Yes.
Okay, we're on to discussion items, and I as I said to the board members, I think last night when I sent an email, I think given the weight of the work that we need to do tonight around the board and around the action items on this agenda, it might be best to just defer that discussion until a later date. I know there are a couple people who really can't stay here late tonight, and I don't want to lose board members if we go past 9 o'clock. So I'd like to try to move us into that discussion if that's okay with folks.
Just one thing, if I
Yes,
may.
yes.
On Monday, March the 18th, at 5 o'clock.
5:30?
5:30, there will be a community forum focusing on initiative in the school district, budget, and what is happening. It was scheduled for last Monday on the 11th, but due to the snow, the weather, we had to cancel it. So since we have community members here and parents and employees, we want to invite you. Is a community forum, doesn't have a set agenda, but talking about different initiatives in the school district. You can ask your question and your concern, and it's at 5:30 to 6:30 at the Click. Click is located in North Windham and Country Clubhouse Road. So welcome, and take your neighbor, your brother, your sister, invite everyone to attend.
There is something on the Board of Ed website about that event, so you can just go up there and look at it on the calendar if anybody's uncertain about the address. There was information in our packet about some of this, so we'll defer it to a later date if that works out okay with folks. So we're on to committee reports, and Murphy, I'll hand it over to you for Finance and Audit.
The Finance and Audit Committee did not meet this month, but we will meet. What's the date?
We'll meet the 27th, because that's when I have to be.
I think it's the 3rd of April. I'm trying to remember exactly which. No, it's not. It's the 10th of April. The 3rd is the, okay. The 10th of April is our next board meeting. And we will then take a look at where we are with this year's budget and a couple of other issues related to this year's budget.
Any questions for Murphy on that? Okay, school planning and design. Tracy.
We met last week. Mr. Harris provided us with the name of the 3 firms that are going to come forward for an interview. I asked to be invited to that since my committee is going to be working with them pretty closely. So when those are scheduled, I asked to be invited. Things are going well. Roofs are being patched and moved along. Windham Center and North Windham roofs are going to need to be replaced. North Windham seems to be the more dire at the time, so that's the one that we moved forward on the capital improvement plan. And I think that's pretty much it. It was a quick meeting. Oh, go ahead, Murph.
You didn't mention what the 3 firms were interviewing for.
Oh, the facilities master plan and looking at K-8 schools.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Architectural
Right.
consulting for.
Consultant for the district, right?
Yeah. I just
We have
figured
to update our- yeah,
people might want to know what we're talking about.
We've been talking about it for a while, so I figured people might know, but we have to update our facilities master plan and look at possibly going to K-8 schools. That hasn't been decided yet, and that's what they're going to
Well,
explore.
that's one of the things we're going to explore. yeah.
Right. And then we talked about the ed specs, and Mr. Harris and Ms. Chady said they should be done the end of this week, we're hoping, so. As of last Thursday, so things
Yes.
change, I'm aware of that.
Actually, that would be helpful, Dr. Garcia, if you could report to us on the status of the
Sure.
ed specs issue.
I believe that we finished the draft today. Tomorrow morning, we have a reading at 8:30 with all the parties. We'll send it to Mr. Pellman tomorrow evening at the end, and so we're hoping to send it to you on Friday. So the question is, can you meet next week to approve it? Because on the 27th, we'll be at the Board of Finance, but we expect to send it to Mr. Pellman tomorrow, Thursday, to get his blessing, and then we could send it to you guys on Friday afternoon.
Mr. Pellman from Colliers?
Yeah. From Collier, correct. Sorry.
It's okay.
So if we get the ed specs on Friday, the question that's been put out is, do we want to schedule a meeting before April? because our meeting on the 27th is being superseded by the Board of Finance meeting, at which we are supposed to be presenting the Board of Ed budget to the Board of Finance. And so we can't really be physically in two places at the same time. So what are folks' interest in scheduling a special meeting next week to talk about ed specs?
I would hope that we could meet next Wednesday, but I would also hope that that would mean that we would get the draft of the ed specs before the weekend. It's a big, complicated document. It's not something we can get Wednesday morning and vote on Wednesday evening.
She said we'd be getting it on Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
evening.
Well, that's the,
Okay.
assuming we
Just-
can get it on, assuming we can actually get it on Friday, then I would be willing to meet next Wednesday at 7, a special meeting to,
I think that's a good idea. I don't know what people's availability is. We'd need to have a quorum. What are people's calendars like next Wednesday?
I'll make myself available. We've got to get this done to get the building committee moving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta get it done.
We'll just free up all our Wednesday.
Welcome to budget season.
Mary and
I think
and
so, yeah.
Mike, Mark,
Yeah.
you're available. Jaime,
I think so.
Ilda. Okay.
Anything-
Budget season.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, we have work to
There's
do.
only one
and-
item in the agenda, right? It would be only one item.
yes,
Yes.
that'll be enough.
Okay.
A long one.
I'd like to make a caveat, if I may,
Yes.
that if we don't have the ed specs by Friday,
Yes.
that we figure
would not
something
have it.
different out.
Right. Yeah.
Because if I don't have the time to devote to it, it'd be wrong for me to approve it or not approve it at that point.
Right. I think Murphy raised the same point, that if we're not getting it before the weekend, it's sort of hard to
Right.
absorb things, figure out whether you have questions about things of that sort.
We plan to send it to you electronically on Friday, so it would be not paper, but electronically. Is that okay?
Yes, better.
Okay.
So, what time on Wednesday works for folks?
7.
Pardon?
I don't know, it's nice, I mean, 7's
6
our usual
o'clock,
meeting
maybe.
time.
6
You want to meet earlier?
Too bad.
Mike,
Compromise, I don't know.
6 is cutting it close.
6:30 would be better for me. I don't even, I'm really not supposed to get out of work till 6 next Wednesday, and it's an hour drive, so I'll have to,
Then it needs to be a 7.
7 it
Then
is.
Yeah.
there's
I'm
gotta be a
sorry.
7 then.
and I'll try to talk to my boss and see if I can get out a little early, so I give myself some wiggle room. I'm sorry.
Okay,
No,
next
it's okay.
Wednesday.
7's
Okay,
fine.
Wednesday.
No,
Give you.
that's the issue, people work.
There's only one item on the agenda, like you said,
Fine.
one.
Yeah,
Okay,
one.
so 3:20 at 7 PM. Okay. Thank you. Policy Committee.
Hello, can you hear me? Do I need closer? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So we were presented with 3 policies last month. First one was procurement. We need more info before pursuing that one. And the second one was the graduation requirements. We need more info before we pursue that one also, because that one keeps changing. As we reread it, another one comes up. And then there was a special education budget. Special education policy 6171, which we need to read and get some more information on. And so we are going to look at these again at the end of the month, and we meet the last Thursday at 5 o'clock at central office. Anyone's invited to come, and if anyone wants us to look at a policy, we'll be more than willing to entertain that at our meeting. Thank you.
Any questions for the policy, for Ilda? Yes, Tracy.
Have we begun looking at a policy about protecting the benefits line on the budget?
No, we have not. We, the way that policies are brought to us, we're given policy, so someone would have to, either like yourself or someone else would have to bring it to us, maybe Lynn.
I'd like to interject here. After talking to you last week, Tracy, I was reminded that you had raised this last October. And as I said at last week's meeting, it now has the urgency of doing this has shifted to adopting policies that enact two items on the resolution that was passed in 2012 by the town council when they established the self-insured plan. Neither the town nor the Board of Finance nor the Board of Ed ever put into effect any operating policies about how those procedures should work. So it was agreed at the last Board of Finance meeting last week that a work group was set up to come up with those policies and get them done by May 1st and adopted, even if they're done sooner, by the three different boards. So I think we're going to take care of it that way. Then after we see those policies, there may be some other policies and procedures that we want to put into place at the Board of Ed level, but I think until we see those model policies, we can't really make that decision.
Okay.
So at this point, it seems like we don't need to go do that until we have those model policies in place.
Perfectly.
We were given, by the consultant last week, we were given model language that could be used, that is used in dozens of other towns around the state that have a self-insured health plan. So we'll proceed on that, and Rita and I, that night at that meeting, Rita and I were assigned to represent the Board of Ed in that process. There's a representative from the Board of Finance and a representative from the town. Okay?
Thank you.
So we will do that. And I just want to say, lest anybody who's on staff under the Board of Ed is concerned about their claims being paid, that's not a concern at all to be worried about. This just has to do with making sure we have the right amount of money that we're placing on an annual basis into the account, and that we have some guidance on how we want to deal with the reserves moving forward. Does that aptly describe what we talked about last week?
Yeah, very well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Executive committee, well, we met last week. We did talk about this issue, about the self-insured health insurance plan that is jointly participated in by the town and the Board of Ed. And as you've heard in discussions over the past weeks and even months, there's some work that we need to do to make sure that we're dotting all our T's and crossing all our I's on that front. But rest assured that is being dealt with. We laid out a calendar for the superintendent's annual evaluation, which will be happening this summer. After we get through this Board of Ed budget process, I want to turn my attention to finalizing the tool and setting the calendar in motion to go through that process. And the board will be hearing more from me about the meetings that we're going to need to have in order to be able to do that, and give everybody a chance to have the input that they'd like to have. Yes? Are you going to say something, Jaime?
I think you mentioned before, or I heard somewhere, is that audit process is going to happen? The town was going to hire some audit to look into the benefits, health systems, and is that happening?
We didn't have to hire anybody. The Board of Finance, two meetings ago of theirs, decided to use the services of the agent that represents the agency that does our workers' comp program. He consults with, I think they have 70 towns that are clients of theirs around the state, and So he offered to work with the Board of Ed and the town to get the information together, and that the Board of Finance decided they didn't need to hire somebody. They would wait and see what we got from this consultant that was presented to us last week. There were some issues in the numbers that were presented last week because they did not include the grant income from the Board of Ed side, which I've asked the Board of Ed, I've asked the superintendent to make sure when we go into discussion that we have a chart that's updated with that grant information, and then we'll share it with you all too, so we know exactly where we're standing as we move forward on this.
So you're representing the Board of Ed in this process?
Rita and I were assigned, and then
Rita
somebody
and you
from
Okay.
somebody from the Board of Finance, and then somebody from the town.
Thank you.
And our next executive committee meeting will be on the first Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Welcome, Susie. Sorry your appointment ran late. We're on to action items on the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is the second reading and possible approval of a school calendar for 2019-2020. We spoke about this once previously at a previous meeting. There were some issues raised about the mid-year midterms and the calendar for that. I would like to remind board members that that issue was grieved last year and settled, and I also would like to say that it's my understanding that 3 different versions of a school calendar were circulated, and this calendar that's been presented to us was the one that was the top choice. But I would like to also let the board know that late this afternoon, I did get an email from the union representatives from the high school about their concerns about not having the half-days for the midterms. And I didn't want to, it wasn't sent to the full board, and I was in between meetings, and I didn't get a chance to make a copy of it, but that's why I was fiddling through my papers earlier. I thought I had brought one. But I just wanted to let you all know that the teachers at the high school, their union leadership, weighed in with a note. Unfortunately, it didn't get sent until afternoon today, which I was sort of disappointed that we didn't get it sooner. But I guess we should have a motion on the floor and then get it seconded, and then we can discuss this.
Recommend we approve the school calendar as presented in reference 2 of the packet.
Second.
A motion made by Murphy, seconded by Jaime. Now we can open it up to discussion. Is there anything that anybody would like to raise?
Yes. Seems to me like this issue is really, really important to teachers. I don't know how important, we say no because it's against a contract, but what do we gain by saying no? What is the maybe I cannot explain myself well, but
I'll try.
But if it's significant to them, and then we don't lose the whole lot of it, why don't we just kind of compromise on this? Because it's asking, I know that we already they came, we decided on that. But if the issue comes forward once again and again and again, then something is there. Maybe we should listen and we should proceed in a different way. That would be my own personal opinion on this. Very personal.
Do you have a suggestion?
Let's listen to them again, and let's see maybe we can talk again. Maybe we can establish a new conversation, and something may come up. I don't know. We may come up to a different solution or not.
May I ask a question here?
Well, are you finished, Jaime?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Murphy.
So my question would be, all right, so this issue came up last year, it went through the grievance process, there was a resolution through the grievance process. We can go round and round this tree as many times as we want to, but, so my basic question is, how much time do we have?
Before we need to have the calendar approved?
Before this calendar has to be approved.
I defer to Dr. Garcia.
So across the state and across the country, school districts already have approved their calendar. I just want to remind you that people are making plans for vacations at the beginning of the school year. So is the month of March is standard procedure. But I do want to add something to this. The process for developing the calendar is a process that's very inclusive. There's a committee that involves teachers, that involves administrators, cafeteria workers, secretaries, every union sent a representative to that committee, and they have different meetings, and they set up their calendar, and they send 3 recommendations to the superintendent. Because the 3 recommendations were very difficult this year, I did something a little bit different, because
they were difficult or different?
Well, the 3 Kings Day this year is, I believe, a Wednesday, and so that makes it difficult that it's in the middle of the school day. So I needed some input from the staff about how they perceive that. And so we sent the 3 calendars out to every single school and asked the principal in a Monday meeting to present it. I'm hoping that all principals did that, because we did receive response from every school, including the high school, what calendar were selected. And unanimously, even from STEPS, I believe. STEP didn't send, you didn't send STEPS? Joan, did you send? Did you send the calendar? Yeah.
And ours was also A.
A, and unanimously across the district, every school selected A. Just give you the process, just for people to know the process.
So that's between A, B, and C.
The A, B, and C, right.
Clarification.
Yes.
When I spoke before, I was referring to the half day on midterms day only. That's what I was talking about.
Well, that's
Okay.
the point that's under contention from the union.
I
letter.
know we already discussed it. We already had a verdict was done. But I think that it's open. To me, very personal opinion, could be open. Wouldn't mind opening for discussion again. That's clarification.
Do you want to finish?
Let's finish.
You're finished?
I thought so.
So, did you get your question answered, Murphy? There's no hard and
not
fast
not
date
entirely.
on this.
I understand. So the reason that there's some, to the extent that there's any urgency at all, it's so that people can do things like plan vacations and whatnot. They need to know when the school year is going to begin. They need to know when the school year is going to end. They would probably like to know when the dates of the spring vacation are going to be. All right, so then my question becomes, can we nail all of that down while still leaving the issue around the way the midterms are handled open to subsequent adjustment?
Can I just add something to that? I want to add a comment.
And then Tracy
Yeah,
has a question.
in 2014, when I came, August 1st of 2014, I do recall that the calendar for that school year, 2014, 2015, did not have the half days on the calendar, midterms. Were not on the calendar. They were not on the calendar. During the year, the course of the year, close to the midterm, the matter came up to the administration and we handled it, but they were not on the calendar. If I recall, of 2014 to 15, it was brought to my attention later on, a couple of months later. Those two add to your point.
So it is possible to make adjustments, at least those kinds of adjustments, after we've.
I don't want to make adjustment about
So we
starting
could
the
approve
school
this-
year, but.
So we could approve this calendar without addressing whatever it was that the union sent you today, and still take that up at some subsequent board meeting.
To be clear, the letter was addressing not anything else about the school calendar except their concern, that their feeling that the mid-year, and it was largely anecdotal, but their sentiment that the mid-year exams should have a half-day schedule rather than a full-day schedule. Tracy wanted to say something, though.
In any of the, I think you said 3 versions you sent to the schools, were there half days for midterms?
None of them were there.
Okay.
But also, there's opportunity for them to give feedback. So what the school send is a feedback. So for example, a school said, okay, 30 people wanted A, 10 people wanted B, and they wanted to add this to the calendar, et cetera, et cetera. Like a school wanted, for example, another extra day of teacher parents conference. So everybody added, some things were possible, some things were not. So people send back their feedback. That feedback never came from the high school.
So,
Wait, may I finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
So last year, when we sat here discussing the calendar, you said that the teachers' union were on board with eliminating half-days. The teachers' union grieved that, saying that they were not on board with half-days for midterms. And that's when we told you and the teachers' union to form a committee. The committee was never formed, and so there was not the opportunity to mediate this. So I think waiting on this calendar is just essentially passing the calendar as it is and not making any changes, because no changes came from this exact same point last year when the teachers said they were not on board and then grieved it.
If I recall, I don't recall that exactly. What I recall is that they did grieve it. The board upheld the grievance and asked them to go back and work with the administration. And this year, when Dr. Jumberg made the schedule, she used exactly what the union leadership gave her.
Union leadership gave that to her last year after after the grievance failed. The grievance was that they didn't have the contractual right to tell us how to change the calendar. It wasn't that midterms are a bad idea.
So I do want to say, for me as superintendent, it's important that I have teacher parents conference in the calendar, the starting of the school year, the end of the school year, the assessment calendar. This is a situation that can continue in conversation. What is important is teachers knowing school is going to start August 27, because we have to get ready for that. That is what is important. This only affects the high school. It doesn't affect the entire school district. And so I want to point that out.
Could we then, based on the conversation that I'm hearing today, could we possibly approve the calendar with a directive for the administration and the high school teachers to go back and come back to us with a proposal about midterms? Would that affect the calendar days?
No, absolutely not.
that was the gist of my question.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that we should acknowledge that there's an issue here
Right.
and agree to take a look at it in April or May or somewhere before the end of this school year.
And I want to preface again, 2014, when I came August, there was no midterm half day on the calendar, and we addressed it during the school year.
Okay.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Mike?
Why don't we address the issue and then vote on it?
Wait until April and vote on it?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, that's one approach. Mary had her hand up. Then
I'd be
Murphy.
willing to vote on this tonight.
Okay, what would be voting on directing the administration to establish, talk with them?
We
or
would-
reinstating the half day? What is the vote on? What would be?
I don't think the vote tonight that I've heard in discussion is the sentiment that I've heard from some people is that maybe we should be, like you said, maybe we should really be listening to the teachers, despite the fact that the grievance was settled the way it was earlier, and that we could pass the calendar, would have the start date, the vacation schedule, whatever, and with the direction that they come back, that they go back to talk about the midterms. Mike made the suggestion that we just hold on it another month and vote on it in April. And settle in the, try to work this out in the meantime. Is that what you're saying?
My reason for that is we're going to vote on this, it's going to pass through, and nothing's going to happen. It's not going to change. Nobody, there's, once we vote on it, it's done deal. It'll never be looked at again. Just like historically.
Murphy?
Well, that's entirely up to us. I mean, there is a comments process where teachers if can bring it up. We have, I think, some feeling on the board that we ought to be taking a look at it. I don't know that we have enough information to come to a conclusion tonight, but I'm certainly willing to listen to the teachers' positions for, against, and otherwise, as well as the administration's positions. But we have, I don't think we're prepared to take that on tonight, but I do think that it's useful for people to know as soon as possible when school's going to start, when school's going to end, when the spring break's going to be, when other dates are that are on the calendar. So as long as all of that's set, if we fail to look at the issue again with respect to midterms, that's on us.
Ilda, and then Jaime, and then I'd like to move us forward.
Okay. So my question is, I don't know if I missed something, but did teachers from the high school request this? Request the half days for midterms on the to be put on the calendar?
No.
They had it before, academia.
It was part of the grievance that we heard, but the letter today was just their concern about their experience without having a half day for midterms, and they'd like us to reconsider. That was written by the union leadership.
So why can't we give it to them and just put in the calendar high school only, like we usually do?
Give what to them?
The half days.
Well, I think some people would want to have more discussion about that with the teachers. That's what I'm picking up in this conversation.
But why do we need to discuss it?
There was a
with
debate
the
last year on this subject, and there was a reason why we decided not to have the half days, which I think we probably want to review at the same time that we consider the. There's an argument on both sides of this. I think we need to hear the argument on both sides of this.
You jumped in ahead of Jaime. It was his turn next.
I think my suggestion would be, I don't think at this point we want to override anything within the superintendent and teacher. My suggestion would be to have request that the administration really sit down with teachers, listen to each other, and then just come up with a solution, rather than the board saying this is the way it's going to be.
Jaime.
I think if they listen to each other, they will come up with the right solution. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor right now to adopt the calendar that's been made and seconded. The discussion that has ensued has raised a wrinkle in it in some people's minds. Not everybody on the board feels that way, but I think some people on the board have voiced that they'd like this to be discussed more. What's the pleasure? I mean, we could just vote on the motion that's on the floor, up or down, or somebody could make an amendment to the motion. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment to the motion that we postpone the second vote on the calendar until our April 24th meeting, at which point we get a complete report from the administration as to yay or nay for the half days, or why we need them or don't need them. But my amendment would be to postpone the final vote until the April 24th meeting to give the administration time to meet with the teachers.
The motion has been put on the floor to amend. There's been an amendment to the motion on the floor proposed by Mark. I would need the people who made that motion to accept that.
I would second that. Mark's position. I think there has to be this.
Murphy made the motion.
Murphy made the motion.
You second it.
He just seconded the amendment. So it's up to Dr. Sewell if he'll accept the amendment.
Right. Otherwise, you're not going to accept the amendment? Okay.
I don't wish to.
Okay, you do not wish to accept the
I prefer
amendment?
to vote on it right now and deal with
If I
the
may,
wrinkle
Yeah.
later.
let me add some light to the situation. This is a calendar for the entire school district. This matter of the midterm only affects the high school. We have 7 other schools, K through 5, K through 8, that deserve to know when their school year starts and when their school year ends. As superintendent, I have no problem having a conversation with a matter that already has been grieved, if the board direct me to do so, to sit down with my leadership team that have that handled this matter, Dr. Tracy Youngberg and Mr. Albie Harris, and the entire committee that include teachers from the high school. But I do think it's our responsibility to respect the wishes of the committee that include members of this school district, some of them that are sitting right here tonight. If I respect that process, I think the board should respect that process. However, I am saying as superintendent that if the matter of the midterm is dear to the board, I will direct my team to go back and have that discussion. But I, honestly, as a parent of a second grader, I already know when school starts. I already know when vacations start. I already know that, and I think we deserve, the parents of the school district also deserve to know.
Okay, there is no, the motion that's on the floor is to approve the calendar. The amendment that was proposed did not get accepted, or get a second. Is there? So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to vote on the motion that's on the floor. I will just say as the chair that I would, if I vote in favor of this, I would very much hope that you would stand by what you just said, Dr. Garcia, and that the union would come back to the table from the high school in good faith and discuss this, knowing that the grievance was overturned, I mean, was decided against them last year, and that we'd get a proposal within a month back here to us if there's any proposed change. That's what I would hope.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, any further discussion?
I would hope that too. I want that conversation.
Okay, I'm going to call a vote on the motion on the floor to approve the proposed 2019-2020 calendar that's been put before us. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So please, we look forward to getting a report back from the teachers at the high school and the superintendent administration in April. Okay, so I want to remind board members that we also have an executive session tonight, and our attorney is here.
They're here.
That's not a threat in any way. We should talk about the budget. The next item that's on the agenda is recommended approval of a proposed 2019-2020 Windham Public School budget.
Okay, actually, what we have to approve, I believe, so I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I recommend that the Board of Education approve a general funds budget for 2019-2020 of $49,903,252.
Do I get a second on that motion?
Oh, 7 cents.
Is there a second on the motion? Mary? Okay. So now we're opening it up for discussion. The way I would like this discussion to run is that in order to avoid unnecessary talking over each other or back and forth or stepping on each other's toes when people are trying to finish their point, I would ask us to behave a little bit like we're in the legislature and all your questions get directed through the speaker. Well, get directed through the chair, and then I will ask the superintendent to either answer the question herself or direct a member of, the appropriate member of her staff to answer the question.
It's fine with me.
Is that okay?
Fine.
With everybody? Okay, because at the last few meetings, we've had a little too much talking across the table at each other without people getting to finish their points. So I usually don't like to do things this way, but we're going to do it for this. So Mike, you had your hand up first.
A couple of concerns that I have. One is putting the payroll into grants. We worked a few years back, not doing that, getting them out. It seems like more payrolls getting put in. Another thing that I had noticed and should have talked about a little earlier was the high school not offering, something like earth science that's a third of the state assessment. So there's a couple issues that were being pulled away. So I want to make sure that, some instructional stuff wasn't being pulled, and also the fact of, putting the grant grant funding with the positions. It's just,
Dr. Garcia, would you like to respond to
yeah,
the issue of having parts of the staff being paid for by, I mean, the grant-funded
grants.
You mean
staff?
staff being paid by grant?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. To my understanding, since the inception of the school district, there are staff that are paid by grant. The budget of the school district general fund cannot support the entire operation of the school district, and this is not during this year, for many, many, many years. Grant funding has been a source, a critical source for the school district for many, many, many years. Over the years, grants have decreased, and so is is the local and state funding are decreasing. But district like Windham Public School and other Alliance district, that's why they're Alliance district, cannot afford, based on their taxes, to really, and that's the issue that we have in Connecticut with the funding formula for school. Based on the ECS that we received this year, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, without the grant, they cannot afford to run the operation of the entire school district. As general funds decrease from taxpayers and also from the state, some position move to grant, depending on the year, some position move back over to general fund. So in order to, and I see your concern, Mr. DeSantis, and I do also see it, but if we don't have those grant funds, then we need another source of funding to pay for those staffing. And if we, for example, there are Title I, for example, that allow us to have coaches for reading and interventionists pay out of Title I. There are Alliance funding that said, this money is for PD, or this money is to pay coaches for that. So the grant does allow us. The grants are very specific. We cannot put anything in the grant that is not allowed to be paid through that grant. And I will hope that one day, I don't know, that we'll have sufficient money in the general fund that we will not need grants. I hope that will happen one day. I don't know if that will ever happen. I don't know, Rita, you want to answer some of that or to help me? Go ahead.
Our grants are almost 15 million.
Yeah.
I don't know how that will get put into the general fund.
There's a breakdown in the budget book of how much of the
15 million.
funding from the budget comes from grants.
I know, it's been that way since I was here 10 years ago.
18.9%.
Right.
Yeah. And typical for the district like us, yeah.
Are there other questions that I thought I saw? Ilda had her hand up, then Murphy. Mary, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ilda, Murphy, then Mary,
Me.
and then Jaime,
Then me.
then Tracy.
We're all getting our then me's in.
Yeah.
Me first. So I have two questions. My first one is on they're both on page 98, line 580 for the travel, under the travel. What does the decrease in travel represent?
Okay, so that's a good decrease. That's a very positive decrease. So what we're going to do is we have sent a lot of people to professional development to be trained, either here locally or maybe to Boston, Hartford, and other areas. So for next year, we want to use some of the people that we have sent out to be trained to provide some of that PD in-house, and so we can decrease that line.
That's great.
You have another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, my second and last question for now is same page, 98, line 610, under instructional supplies. Can you tell us about the increase in the instructional supplies is by 5.3%. What is that?
Okay, so that's a positive increase.
Another positive.
That's a positive increase, and what that means is that we're increasing the amount of money we're putting in school to tackle instructional tools, to tackle consumable books, to tackle manipulatives, to buy other materials to help them support instruction. For example, during the school year this year, 2 months ago, we bought reference material for teachers and administrators of how to handle close reading. So they are not textbook for students, but they are could be used for supplies for students, but also for teachers or administrators in the building.
Okay.
So that's a positive one.
Murphy?
Okay, so to Mr. Desagnier's point about staff on grants, it kind of depends on the grant, because the Alliance grant is kind of a backdoor educational cost sharing because of the way that they did the educational cost sharing formula. So they created the Alliance districts in order to add money without messing with the basic Alliance educational cost sharing formula. And it's a little cockeyed from a conceptual point of view. It's a bookkeeping game. But the educational cost sharing money is part of our general budget fund that we pay teachers with. And so the Alliance money, which is grant money, also is the same category, really. On the other hand, there are other grants that you can point to that are a less permanent or less likely source of paying staff, because the grants have things like the Commissioners Network that have a 5-year date, and you know they're going to disappear. So what we want to do is not so much keep staff off of grants, but to keep them off of grants that are going to vanish.
Yeah.
Or that we know that are going to vanish. My question, I was just looking at this reconciliation to previous budget book document that you sent us earlier this week. Because we had a number last week that's a little different, not a whole lot different. It's different, but you added and subtracted some things. One of the things that you subtracted is $160,000 in computer hardware, and I kind of wonder what we're losing there.
Yeah, Chris, you may want to help me with this one. So we had budgeted a large amount of money for computers. We budgeted a really, really high amount. Every year we budget a high amount for computers. So we felt that this year, based on moving only one grade of the elementary, one grade of the middle school, one grade of the high school, we just purchased 125 computers for elementary teachers across the district just recently. January, February, when did we purchase those computers, Brandon? We just purchased in January 125 computers for elementary teachers. So after conversation with our team, we felt that we could reduce that section and still continue to maintain technology, but reduce that section.
So we're essentially deferring some replenishment of older computers?
Well, definitely, it will have an impact. $160,000 is an impact. So if we're planning to buy 100 computers next year, then we only will be able to buy maybe 50.
Which means in some ways that at some point, if you keep doing that, people are going to start there was a point not so many years ago when teachers were using really old computers.
Yes.
And it was negatively impacting education. We don't really want to go. I understand that we have to squeeze the budget, but
I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to.
I just want to know what it was.
Draw this out, but Murphy, you're basically saying that you're concerned about us deferring those purchases repeatedly over time.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Just to give a context to it, Dr. Garcia, the year before, in 18-19, we actually had zero in the general fund, and the concern is we should be picking up more in the general fund, so we added 140,000.
Oh, yeah.
But in the previous year, it was zero, and we maintained that level of the level of spending. I mean, 362 we added, right?
360,000.
And this year we budgeted 350, so it's pretty much steady, but it's not increasing. I think we had wanted it to increase, but we couldn't afford it. Okay. But it's way more than the previous year, 17-18.
Okay.
Thank you. The next person is Mary, and then Jaime, and then Tracy.
All right, looking at the changes you made on page 86 and 100, natural physical sciences. Okay, you said 2 teachers have been reclassified. I'm not sure why. It's on page 103, but it refers to pages 86 and 100. So
103.
You've reclassified.
103 a page.
Right.
Yeah. With the references to pages
Natural
86
physical
and
science, 2 teachers.
so you said reclassified meant one of them's TFA. So does that mean a teacher was removed and another was replaced? And then another is funded through a long-term substitute position? Okay. So I don't think that really answered my question.
I don't, read it, Darlene, do you have the answer to that one?
So, I'm not sure
You need a mic, Carolyn?
It's just for clarification on page 103.
Okay.
The explanation about what happened on 86 and page 100 about natural physical science teachers.
Right.
Can you use a mic, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
Even though I have a loud voice, I will. Yes. So what that's referencing, TFA stands for Teach for America.
Yes.
So that is someone it's not licensed, and so those are categorized differently. And that's why it's referenced as one teacher is classified as TFA and the other is funding through a long-term sub position. So again, the classifications are different. Doesn't mean that those positions are not there.
One thing I want to add, we use the term long-term position because that's what the state uses. Right. I think we need to change that term. These are teachers. These are certified teachers. The only thing is that they maybe come from another state and they're waiting for their certification to come from Connecticut. But these are not sub in the sense that it's somebody that doesn't have a teaching degree. They have a teaching degree, or they may finish all their coursework. I'm just waiting. But the state does not allow us to pay them as regular teacher until they get the license from the state.
Right, but I think my initial question was why the sum had gone down from the previous year, for, say, the natural physical sciences on page 86 itself.
I don't see
the certified personnel in that program went from 457,000 to 252. And it didn't seem like reclassifying was going to do that.
Yeah, there's two factors of there. There's split coding that happens. Some teachers are split between multiple disciplines. So, for example, they're coded in science and math, depending on their course load, depending on the school. The middle school, for example, uses a lot of split coding because the teachers might teach in two subject areas. So they might teach math and science, social studies, and ELA, and so forth. In the case of another decline as far as the dollars would be the physics teacher left at a certain salary, another one comes in, a TFA for example, at a much lower salary.
So she will be on the TFA, not under this. She will be on the TFA budget line item.
Other purchase services.
To be on the TFA. Yeah. So the teachers in the building, it does be on the TFA, that is another line item.
Jaime? Oh, did you have another question, Mariam?
No, I'll come back if I have another question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jaime?
Yeah, I want to refer page 98, general fund. I have two items that I want to, item 300 under contract services, which I don't know exactly what they are, but there is a reduction of minus 6.9. Mm-hmm. And then the other item would be 580, other purchase services. So I don't know what's the difference between the two. Okay. And how decreasing one or increasing the other affects the services that students are provided through these items. I don't know.
So item 300, contract services, the decrease in 6.9, that's a positive decrease for us. That's contractual services, meaning the copy machines and things like that we use. So that means that we look at efficiency and reduce maybe a newer machine or eliminate a machine. So that's a positive decrease for us. The other item, 580, purchase services, that's the substitute. That's the Kelly services. So that's an increase, and that means that we need to look into that one. That's increase in substitute.
It's because we don't have enough teachers, or why is
No, these are people that go on maternity leave, or they go on sick leave, or they go daily leave, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. No more questions.
Or long-term sub. And by the way, we have a lot of maternity leave this year. I do have to say that.
We just can't plan on that.
It's a good thing.
Yes. It's very nice. Tracy?
Good thing.
On page 24, and I have to say that I did not get a chance to completely go through this book as I really, really had hoped to, and I'm a little concerned about that. On the
Page what, please?
24, on the February version that we received, it said medical dental benefit increases totaling or $1,940,000 adjusted upward for locked-in estimates. On the copy that we received yesterday, it says $1,020,444 adjusted upward for locked-in estimates, but it went down. Why did it go down by $920,000 when we already have a problem in this area?
Chris, you want to explain that one, and I'll continue. Can I take that one after?
Well, the 1,020,000 is the exact number that's in page 98, I believe it is.
Okay.
So you see that line 200 right there. So that includes not only the health benefits, but it includes unemployment, workers' comp, and all the other pieces. When we added up all of the revenue, the offsetting revenues for the board, it includes the retirees for $500,000, and also we upped the charge to grants from $1.5 million to $2 million. So that additional $1 million or $900,000 brought that number down. In other words, that supports the benefits rather than us having to contribute into the fund that money. We use the grants to pay because we charge benefits in, and we also use the retiree money to charge up against this, and that's why it came down.
So the first number wasn't
It didn't have all the
accurate.
revenue
Right.
pieces to it.
Okay, and we moved more stuff into grants.
And we moved positions out too, which also reduced the amount of benefits, because as
To
we
reflect
reduce.
reality. It wasn't like
Exactly.
we made it up.
But when
They
we,
took a
when
closer
we
look at the
analyzed if it was
staffing.
sufficient to meet the locked-in estimates, it was sufficient to meet the locked-in estimates,
So, for example, if Chris is paid by grant, if Chris is paid out of a grant, so we charge in the benefits to the grant. So we went back and really do the careful analysis of that. So if Patricia is paid out of a grant, then my benefits are paid out of a grant. And before we didn't used to do that.
Okay.
Tracy, do you have another question?
I have a few.
Okay.
On page 47, we're taking someone from the non-certified personnel from the principal's office for $50,000 plus $17,500 for benefits.
What page are you looking at?
47.
47.
Sorry.
Um,
Thought my
Oh,
voice equaled
you're going to
Geraldine's.
finish, can you say your question again,
Yep,
please?
on page 47, took $50,000 from non-certified personnel in the principal's office, line 112 in the third block down, the third spreadsheet down.
That person retired. She retired.
And so you're not going to replace her?
No, she retired, but the person retired, the person that came in very, very, very late. So they're not, that full salary will not going to be paid.
For this year, but not for next year.
The person that is in there is much lower salary than the person that left. The person that left was in this district like for how many years?
At Natchog? Okay. And then I started looking on page 48, which is the very next page. We moved some to zeros, but we added a whole new line and added one, and I'm not sure how that's working. We have administrators. We're losing an ELA coach, we're losing a math coach, but we're adding an academic coach for ELA and math?
No, so that's not what. So now
That's what it says.
Yeah. Because what we did is now we went from 16 coach, we went from 24 coaches to 16.
Right.
Total district-wide.
Okay.
So there will be one coach in each building.
Okay.
And so that could be whatever the school choose to have, a ELA or math coach. And then we want to have the other 8 coaches deployed district-wide. So if the school chose to have an ELA or math or a combination of coaches, that's why we put it that way.
So basically, there'll be 2 in every building, though?
There will be 1 permanent in every building.
Right.
Okay, in every building, and then there will be 3 in ELA and 3 in math and 1 in science and 1 in ELL district-wide that will go also and support the schools. Floaters, if you want to call them, that will also be assigned to support the schools.
Okay. I have notes from that I left at work too. In 2019, the Titans program moved from North Windham to Sweeney. As a result, special ed funding is reduced in North Windham School this year but not last year. Why did that change take place this year and not last year? I understand the move, I got that, but it didn't show up in the 18-19 budget, it showed up in the 19-20 budget reduction.
It's showing up in the 19-20 reduction.
Right.
Right, but the move took place in 18-19.
But I think when did the move took place? After?
It took mid-year.
This year,
It took mid-year, that's why.
early in the year, early in the school year.
Early. Early.
So it should have taken a move, it should have come out of
But I
last year's
think
budget.
what the move took place after this budget was developed for 18-19, Ms. Lambert.
That is true.
Yeah, the move took place after.
It was after the budget had been.
Catapult or High Roads.
All right, can you come back to me after
Yeah.
other people
Does
may have a
anybody
turn?
else have any questions? Yes, Susie.
I have two questions. if that's
Okay.
Okay, on page 98, line 640, I see an increase in funding for textbooks. Can you tell us about that?
That's a positive one. That's a very positive increase. So we.
Big increase.
Yeah, it's a good increase. We want to make sure that the students, particularly elementary school, have the textbook that they need and the teacher. So we're increasing textbooks in ELA and we're increasing textbooks in math. And so we want to make sure that kids have the textbook and teachers have what they need. So it's a positive increase.
Oh, good, that is a good thing.
Susie, do you have another question?
Yes, I have another question. On page 32, I see an increase in the ESL bilingual. Does that represent new students?
That will represent new students, new classes. As you know, our dual language program, one-way dual language program increases every year. So next year we will have third grade, so we'll have K1 and 2 and 3. So that's the increase in staffing for those classes that we'll have at Windham Center, Natchog, and Sweeney. That's a positive increase.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Ilda?
Follow-up to this
I have-
question.
Oh, a follow-up? Would you mind if he has to follow up on that question?
Yes, I mind, but it's okay. No.
Okay, Jaime, Jaime, and then Ilda, and anybody else, and then
I
Mary.
mean, we're talking about dual language increasing and so forth. Is there a limit? Have we projected how many or how much increase can we support? I mean, we cannot possibly take all of them. I mean, do we say, we're gonna go up to 150, whatever it is, a number. But there has got to be a projection to how much we can support this program.
Okay, so the one-way dual is, if you want to, I'm going to call it a wash with a general program. I will say the dual language program, it can be more expensive, but the one-way dual is one teacher that's teaching in both languages. So if you don't have a dual language teacher, you can have a monolingual teacher, but you'll still have a teacher in that classroom for those kids. So there is no increase in the dual language program. If you don't have a dual language teacher, you'll have a monolingual teacher.
Well, they may shift, and then you'll be in trouble, with the other one, if they shift to dual language.
Well, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. In the dual language, we know from the beginning of the year because of process of lottery, and there's a number cap in the dual language.
There is a number
And we only have one dual language program in the district, for elementary at North Windham, and middle school for 6 through 8. But, so we budget for this, not only in number and money, but we also make plans for teachers, because we know that every year we'll need a number of teachers that need to be bilingual. And so what does that mean for the district in terms of recruitment also?
Ilda?
Just a follow-up question from, thank you, you're welcome. Follow-up question from a while back. Now, you said we are losing secretaries or we're not? Because based on the budget, I only saw a part-time secretary that's out of the budget from ECC. That was it. But the rest, we're not losing any secretaries.
We did
Someone
put 2
asked
for
me
attrition. 2 for attrition there. Chris, did we put them in the beginning for attrition? 2 for attrition? That we put 2 for attrition in the budget.
We put, yes.
2 for attrition.
2 for what?
Attrition.
Replacing people who are
They
leaving.
retired, they left.
We know we're having 2 retire.
It's called fertrition?
Attrition.
Attrition?
They leave without being
Retiring and not being replaced.
Lose them.
Okay.
Sounds,
We lose them.
sounds worse
Exactly,
than it
it's a
is.
loss.
It's a loss.
Yeah.
It's a fancy way of saying it's a loss.
Yes.
Bit like a disease.
Mary, you're up next.
Regarding the budget narrative on page 104, this American Reading Company program, does that get funded every year? Is it some licensed program of books and materials? Is it a subscription?
The American Reading Company is a reading program. The American Reading Company, and Tracy, I guess you could answer that better, is our reading program that we use K through 3. Tracy, you up?
Tracy, you
So it is the only program K to 3, and we've purchased all the materials related to the only program K to 3.
And so that, do you have to continually purchase consumables with that one company, or do you reuse?
I don't think we have to make a purchase on consumables K to 3 because we've
purchased
what we need to get the program up and running. If we move the program to grade 4 and 5, we need to make another purchase for materials for those grade levels.
4 and 5.
Okay. The other question I have is about Chronos. Just to be clear, I understand the concept of savings from people who left 15 minutes early or something like that. I mean, I suppose they will be doing 15 more minutes of work. But whether we actually see dollar amounts realized, that's the question I have. Is there a guarantee by this company for these numbers? I'm just a little concerned, as I am with some other outsourced programs, that we are buying their PR without getting a money-back guarantee. So that's the question about that particular one.
So let me start with that, and I want to ask Rita and Geraldine to help me with it. So one of the areas as we develop the budget, as we look at implementing programs for our students, that we increase textbooks, it also look at efficiency. And we look at efficiency in operations. We don't want to look at efficiency in saying we're not going to buy textbooks or we're not going to buy chairs, by the way, that 8th grade chairs for the middle school. Well, how do we look efficiency in operations? And so that's an area that we saw as a district, looking around the country, looking at other school districts and researching. And so I want to have the two experts in Chromos tell you how that worked, but it's in an area of efficiency that will not take away from kids.
It was explained at a previous meeting, but yeah.
I'll start and then I'll pass it to you, Rita. So one of the things that we just actually explained in our training too that's really important to realize, and I don't think everybody realizes how many hands a piece of paper actually touches right now. So when a timesheet starts, it actually starts with the employee. It goes to the building secretary. They then prepare it for the principal to sign. After it goes to the principal, it goes back to the secretary. They have to prepare it in a certain way to send it to HR. In HR, it may touch 1 or 2 hands in preparation for payroll, checking the leave balances, checking like if that was really a sick day, personal day, etc. Then once it gets to payroll, before it can be entered into the Munis system, it touches 2 more hands. And so really what this, there's a lot of room for delays. There's a lot of labor involved in that one piece of paper just to pay one employee. And we're looking at hundreds of people that we're paying this way. So that's one savings right there, is in the amount of time, because it will be electronic. Every bit of that would be electronic. Then it actually loads and talks directly to our Munis system. And of course, we still have to check it to make sure along the way all those things are correct, but it's a much faster process.
It sounds like she can make like one of those Schoolhouse Rock videos. Like,
I know.
I'm just a bill. I'm just a time card.
It's a time sheet. Right.
That's kind of how it feels. That's for sure.
I do have to say the time of the future, eliminating timesheet.
I want to say not only timesheets, but time off requests. Chronos will also do all the accruals, and employees can go online on their phones, on the computer, and instead of waiting for something to get approved by paper, they're going to be able to get it online and see how much time they have. So the accrual paper process that we have does the same actual route as the timesheet process.
It does, and just as a matter of point, my staff has told me that in a year, not a calendar year, in a school year, I signed 4,500 of those personally. So, and I'm just a step in that process.
Okay. Tracy has a couple questions. Is there anybody else after Tracy who has questions? Okay, Mark, okay. Tracy?
The American reading thing kind of touched off on me. At the beginning of the school year, an AP class, government, didn't have textbooks. And this is the second year of teaching this class here at the high school, and it still doesn't have textbooks. And the only reason I know this is because my son's in the class. And I raised this question in September or October, whenever open house or conferences were, and I was told they were on order, and I'm not sure where they are. But they haven't shown up in the classroom yet. Is that a budget question? As per my son. I was not aware. Yeah, no, it just tipped me off when somebody asked the ARC question, and I just wanted to throw that out there. But I do have a couple other questions. On page 54, the North Windham staff kind of listing there, in the old copy, the February copy, under speech assistant, it says 2. Under the new copy, that went down to 1. So we've cut a speech assistant from North Windham School.
What is in the grant, Geraldine?
And if you go over to page 52 where speech pathology is, it adds $91,000 to the budget. So I'm not sure if we're cutting a position, why that number should be going up. I don't know, and that's why I'm asking. And, I mean, I don't know how much a speech pathologist makes, but it looks like in the 2019-2020 budget, we could possibly have 2 or 3 in there already.
Speech pathologist from North Windham, Geraldine?
The speech assistant line that was brought to our attention in the last meeting was incorrect. It was a cut and paste error from another area, so that was not reflected correctly, and it was incorrectly reflected in
Previous
an
book.
old
Previous
budget book as
previous
well.
book.
Yeah.
So this, now we're only going to have 1?
We've always had one speech assistant at there.
Then why did it go up $91,293? That's a
Speech
heck of a
pathologist
raise.
is a different position, and I'll let Mr. Pabon talk to that.
Okay.
So is there an answer?
So we're going from a speech pathologist to a speech pathologist and an assistant?
No,
Or we're going down?
No, there's one speech assistant.
Okay.
And there is one speech pathologist.
Okay.
Which line are you referring to, just so that I'm referencing it?
300.
On
100.
page 52, line 100 in the very, there's lots of 100, guys. On the very bottom block on that page of 52.
Oh, yeah.
Speech pathology. Speech
Speech
pathology.
pathology,
Certified
psychology.
personnel.
At the bottom of page
I see it.
52.
Increase of
You'll see there's an offset to contract services, so previously it was in contract services, and now it's a hired person.
Oh, you're right, we hire a person.
That's the issue, that there was a
different, yeah.
contracted person before, so it was in a different line.
Okay.
There is currently one speech pathologist full-time,
Okay.
one part-time speech pathologist,
Okay.
and one full-time speech assistant.
Okay. Now, the benefits went up on that $38,000. From what I've read in different places in the book, benefits are about $1,750.
It's exactly 35% of the salary. So if you take .35
Okay, then
times
that makes sense.
91,000, it's going to be 38.
That's the total package of all the benefits.
Right, yep. Okay, that makes sense to me now, and that's why I'm asking these questions. And then again on page 54, the earlier version had 8 tutors, and the version that we received yesterday only has 5.
Yeah. Geraldine corrected that. That was an error in the typing. She corrected that. We corrected that.
But they're non-certified personnel, right? Tutors?
Tutors, correct.
Yes.
Are considered, the line decreased $38,000. So how many do we have? Do we have 5, not 8?
At North Windham, the 5 is correct.
Okay. And
Dollar point, that would be.
is that truing up salaries?
Comment.
Is that truing up salaries? Rita?
The FTE was incorrect. The salaries were correct. It was just the FTE copy and paste from a previous year, I believe, Carolyn, correct? If I'm wrong, they have 5
Okay.
FTEs. So the 5 FTEs was in our dollar figure.
So the difference of $38,000 under non-certified personnel, that was in, it's also on page 52. It's the very second number from the top all the way on the right. It went from 116 to 77. It's a 38,889 difference. Is that truing up salaries or?
Page 52?
On page
52,
52 up
to
at
the
the
top.
top, on the very right-hand side.
I don't think they're correlated. I think that savings in non-certified personnel has to do with Kronos and other salary savings. They're not connected.
Okay. All right. social workers.
Okay. What page?
Page 52. How many do we have at North Windham, and how many do we have at the middle school? 52 is North Wyndham.
Do they broken
52 is North Wyndham, correct.
The middle.
So your question is,
Yes,
how
they
many,
are.
how many
How many are in
social
each of those
workers at
buildings?
North Wyndham and how many social workers at the middle school?
Correct, thank you.
Social workers.
Thank
North
you.
Wyndham has 2 social workers, is that correct? North Wyndham have 2.
Is that how many they had before? Is it the same
They
from
always have
last
2.
year?
They always have 2.
All right.
To my knowledge, they always have 2.
All right, and then the middle school?
Middle school have one, and one additional that we put in the budget this time. Projected.
For next year.
Yeah.
Where the heck is that? Social worker. Hold on, what?
Social workers
Social worker went up by 1 on page, I have the, this is the old copy, I need the new copy.
This-
There's too much paper here.
The $60,000 increase in social workers.
At the middle school.
Yeah,
Is
middle
that enough for a social worker?
According to the stats, it went up by 1.
We added a social worker,
Yeah,
a
but-
complete head.
But the question is, a previous, one social worker was 98,100,
Okay, so,
2 is only $60,000 more.
so in North Wyndham, the new paper has the social worker going up to 3. That is page 54 of the new book.
Is, it could be the split
no,
out
no, we
between,
only have
Dr.
2, Darlene.
Sewell, the split out between salaries and benefits.
Yeah, but we did not, we did not.
Okay, it was denied, never mind. So that should be back here too.
So there should still be 2
Requested.
for North Wyndham.
A request that was in was for a third one, but it didn't go through, so that should be 2 now.
Okay. And then the middle school, and I did not fully go through the middle school, I apologize.
Middle school reflects a social worker going up by 1.
Okay.
And that's due to the request that was
Yeah.
included.
Yeah, we added a
Page
dean of
82.
students, we added
82? Thank
Dean
you.
of students and.
an SRO and.
SRO.
School resource officer.
A
school resource
officer and the social worker.
The SRO was not the request of the HGC, but we added.
we added that.
We added the SRO. Yeah.
Okay. Tracy, did you have any more questions?
That's it for right now, thank you.
Okay, Mark, we're on to you.
Thank you. Mine is more of a general comment, I guess. Given the questions I'm hearing tonight, given the questions that I've had over the past, and I'm looking at specifically page 86 with the regular secondary education, again, we're using the huge negative numbers, I guess, to compensate for overestimation in our other salaries. Same thing on 78, where we're showing negative numbers for certified personnel in the regular secondary education. I find enough abnormalities just looking at this budget and listening to the questions, and Ms. Pritz, I don't have confidence enough that I can vote yes for this budget tonight. I think that we didn't have enough time to delve into it. We didn't seem to have enough actual workshop time on this. We just got this revised budget 36 hours ago. I'm prepared to vote no on the budget. I think over 4% was too high to begin with, but my only comment, I guess, is not really a question, is my intention would be vote no on the budget because I just don't feel we've had enough time to get solid answers, and they just keep changing. Typos, mistypes. I cannot reconcile these large numbers as negative for salary personnel. There was a wonderful explanation about how the Chronos is going to save us money because of how many papers, hands the paper has to go through. But the reality is none of that will save us money because I'm not going to lay off any of those people who touch the paperwork. Granted, they will now be efficiencies and they'll be able to do other works, but they will not save me any money. I will still have the exact same number of staff. They'll just be touching other paper. It's a great example of efficiencies from Chronos, but it's not an example of how we're going to save $200,000 in Chronos money. Those are just some of the reasons why I just feel I need to vote no.
Let me, if I may, there's a point of clarification. And Chris, you can explain that negative. I thought you did explain it to Mr. Dole before. I thought you sent him an explanation, but you could explain it again. But I think what Geraldine, Mrs. Beguero, did not add to her very eloquent, articulate statement is that one of the things with Chromos is that no, we have the exact time that employees are working, and the difference before with timesheet, we never know. So somebody could have 7 hours, and the timesheet could say 8 hours. It could have work for 6 hours, it could say 8 hours, and we have no way of verifying that. I have no way of looking at that. With Chromos now, the employees are responsible. It's all computerized, so we know that the time that is in there is in there. And I guess that's one of the benefits of looking at this time. You know, now we don't know. We just sign the timesheet. If somebody said work 8 hours, that's what they work, 8 hours. But with Chromos now, because it's computerized, the hours are right in the system that they're working.
I fully understand that, but it goes back to Mary's question as we're taking Kronos's suggestion or word that we're going to save that $200,000. I'm not questioning the word. I personally find it hard to believe that shaving 15 minutes or half hour off everyone's going to save over $200,000, but that's what Kronos promised you, and I'll buy that. That's just one small example. And when you and I, Dr. Garcia, talked about these negative numbers, you indicated to me that these would be gone, that this section would not be in here because you agreed that this didn't make any sense.
I agree with you. I totally agree that those numbers doesn't make any sense, and I directed Mr. Johnson to explain that to you, and Chris did use an explanation to Mr.
I have sent an explanation, and it's on the pages in the back.
No, about this,
again,
about this number.
I'll just reiterate.
About this particular one, Mr. Doyle has some questions.
We had on the certified line, we used 200,000 as an overall turnover figure. Typically, in a given year, you will have anywhere between 200 and 600,000, maybe even 500,000 one year we had of turnover, and that is positions that do not get filled right away, that stay open and we can't hire them, and they stay open most of the year, or we replace them at a lower level. Because the person going out is paid more than the person coming in. So that 200,000 is very conservative, and we put that up against the certified line. The 150,000 that we tagged to Kronos is actually far smaller than what the company suggested we would save, and this is a company that does timekeeping implementation across the country. I mean, Kronos is the gold standard for timekeeping, and if their proposal to us included over $600,000 worth of savings, which include reduction of personnel also because of the efficiencies that come with Kronos. So we used a very small number compared to the figure they gave us. We put in 25% of the savings that they provided. So I think we're being conservative there. I can't tell you specifically which lines it's going to impact, but it's going to be there. We know that piece. The other piece is, before we put in the $200,000 for the standardization of the workday for the paraprofessionals, we did an analysis, Rita did an analysis of what the savings are, and maybe you can speak to that, Rita.
Yeah, I think I spoke to it last meeting, but I did an analysis, and a quarter-hour a day per para, and tutors and speech assistants, everybody that's in the para union, it did come up to 150 to 200,000 on the average salary. Now, I want to point out that we did explain the negative in the English, page 86 on page 103, that an English language has one teacher who will not be charged to a grant. I thought we went through every page and explained all the negatives or all the big differences, and we removed the negatives that you were speaking of, Mr. Doyle. So I'm a little confused.
The negatives are still in there.
Negatives still there.
But they're in there. They're not in the Kronos was moved to the non-certified.
Oh yeah, I split instead of having everything in the certified line, I split up the credits with the turnover going against the certified line, as you suggested, or said that was more appropriate, and that the $150,000 of Kronos savings and the $200,000 of the standardization of the workforce should be in the non-certified lines. So I split the two, so it would be more accurate.
Okay. We've Jaime,
Yeah.
and then Ilda, and then I'd like to begin to get close to
Okay, just quick
Tracy.
question. I mean, are there any other efficiencies that come from Kronos? Because what I hear is that Kronos simply polices employees' dishonesty. You know that, I mean, if they say they work 8 hours, Kronos will say they work 7. But are there any other efficiencies that we can find in Kronos? I mean, other than policing employees'
Part of it is
dishonesty,
also,
not, I mean, I don't know
accruals.
how much
We have $6 million on the balance sheet of accruals. The more accurate we become with accruals, which is vacation time, personal time, sick time, that accuracy will save hundreds of thousands of dollars that we won't have to pay out when a person leaves, or for those type of severance payments alone.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. No, that's fine.
You're done. Ilda, and then Tracy.
Just a couple of quick things. One is, I haven't seen a librarian in here. Is it covered under certified?
We have not removed the certified librarian. I want to say it again. The high school, the middle school, and Barrows have their certified librarian. I also want to add that there is a rumor around there that I want to put it to squash right now. I don't know how rumors start so quickly, that we have eliminated 2 English positions from the high school. That's a lie. That's incorrect. We have not eliminated 2 English teachers' positions from the high school. We have not eliminated any classroom teaching position from Windham Public School in this budget.
Okay, but where is it on the budget?
The librarian?
Is it,
They must
is
be
it
certified.
under certified?
Under certified personnel
Okay.
because they're certified.
All right, one more quick question on page 80, under support services. Is blank, well, for the middle school, is blank across the board, certified, and the support services on the bottom?
That was explained in your pre-letter that came with the budget. She removed all support services.
Well, that was all covered
For the
under
savings. Yep.
the grants.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you look on page, I just want to
Go
follow
ahead,
up to
Tracy.
Ilda. If you look on page 88, library science is the very last block on the bottom for the high school.
Yeah, the library sciences, it was up in another line before. We moved it back down to where it belonged.
Yeah, page
It's
88.
88 at the
Over
bottom,
here, at the bottom of the
the bottom
library.
section.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.
No problem.
Thank you.
So in
Tracy.
the high school English, you just brought it up, the $177,000, $173,185 reduction is,
We have not removed any English teacher from the high school. One moved to Commissioner, they moved to Alliance. 2 positions moved to Alliance. But they did not, but we have not eliminated. They just moved to a different source of funding.
okay, and through attrition, I know there is an English teacher leaving. Are we going to replace that
We have
person at
replaced
some
that,
point?
we're going to replace that person. There's a posting for that now.
Okay.
For currently to replace that person, and then we look at the end of the year. But we have not removed the money from the budget.
Okay, all right. So that wasn't my question.
Okay,
That just
go
came
ahead,
out of Hilda's
Tracy.
questions. I'm sorry, I piggybacked on that a little bit.
That's okay.
So at the middle school, how many students do we have projected for next year?
When we did the budget, we had 655, but currently we have 665. But when they did the budget at that time, I do want to tell people
I
the budget
I
start.
got it from Brett, the number.
Yeah, the budget started in November. We don't start the budget now, so at that time it was 655.
Okay, so last week we said 665. It still says 650.
Well, maybe at that time we have not increased the funding
We
for the
haven't
high
changed
school.
the enrollment since we got
Right.
it from
We
The
Brett.
use
middle
them.
school.
The
The middle school went from 664 this year to 650 for next year. And there was a whole discussion last week about how it should be 665.
I guess would have to, I mean, the issue is
So
that
that didn't
enrollment
change.
can change every day, and you go back and change the budget every week, because enrollment in the middle school or any school can change on a weekly basis.
I understand
We use
that,
the number of October 1st when we're doing the budget.
but last week you said that the projection for next year was 665. Because
Yes.
it's listed here as 664.
Bless you.
And it hasn't changed in the budget book. And it was a huge discussion last week when the middle school SGC came, and they're here again tonight. Also, the administrator line has only gone up still $45,966.
Where you did put the
We
administrator line.
did, we
And we
explained that.
added an,
We
Where
add-
do you put the
we
dean of
explained
students?
it on 103, is it?
We put it somewhere.
like I said, I haven't had time to fully read this. I've had it less than 24 hours.
For
and
FY 2020, a new dean of students was added, as well as a social worker. The comparison figure for the previous year only included a partial guidance position, and the new dean position is full. So the additional 40 is the difference between a full-time dean and a partial guidance.
So we've reduced the guidance?
No.
Then that doesn't make sense if you have a full-time guidance and a full-time.
Which one are you reading, Chris?
Page, it says.
Page
page
103.
Page 81,
103.
103 referring to 81.
The description for page 81.
We added the dean of students and a social worker.
Right. So we added a dean of students for $45,966.
No, the dean of students was $110,000.
$110,000.
Okay, but it's not being shown there.
Where do you
I
put it,
don't
Chris?
understand why.
It's there.
It's there. It's there.
It's there. It's you're looking at a prior year comparison that contained not a full-time figure for an additional administrator, but only a part-time position for an additional administrator. And this year, we had a full-time position for an additional administrator, so it's only the incremental increase.
So where was the part-time administrator last year at the middle school?
There was one who was shared across three schools.
You're talking to guidance. You're talking to director. You're talking to guidance.
Okay, Sherilyn, do you have an answer to that question?
Administrators were not shared across.
So, in answer to Tracy's question about...
So then this number isn't making sense to me, I'm sorry.
Right,
Maybe
no.
No, in the
Dim, I
budget,
don't
there
know.
was a positions, the director, the guidance person was split across three or four schools.
Three schools, right.
I looked at it and I checked it.
You're looking at an actual of a individual.
We're looking at a budget versus a budget.
Yeah, a guidance director split the grades, three school, Barrows, middle school and high school.
Okay, I understand that, but why hasn't this gone up $100,000 if we're adding another administrator to the middle school?
And that position, we need to find out where it is, because we added in the numbers. I added 110,000, whatever it is.
Correct.
The number is correct. And I do have to say something. This is the first year in the last 6 or 7 years that we have gone to an actual budget. So for the last 6 or 7 years, the district has used averages. This is the only year I have pushed for actual, because you have to function with actual. So next year, you will have an actual to an actual. So this year is a year of transition with Munis, new financial system. We have gone from Phoenix to Munis. So it's pardon us, but we're doing our best with a new financial system and with a new budget system. Next year will be much better, because Munis will be able to give us this information.
Okay. Tracy, any more questions?
Well, I'm still not getting an answer to that
It's
question.
final where you
in
have that
my
110,000 up for the dean of
But there's
students.
just one more thing.
110,000 is in the line. It's the comparison to the previous year. It's the comparison between a full-time FTE and a partial FTE, and the change is just an increase.
Okay, but
That's
last
what-
week, we didn't have adding another administrator in this budget when we got this book. Last week, or the week before, when the SGC came here and said, we want to add another administrator, we instructed Dr. Garcia and her staff to add an administrator. So that
It's
line
added.
should have gone up. It hasn't changed one penny.
It was in there last time.
It was into the last time.
If you want me to provide a reconciliation for you about the expense, I can give
It's
that
the
to
same
you.
line. Okay, so anyways, and the other thing I had a question of
No,
is...
we added it last time.
Okay.
We added it last time.
Do we have, in one of these pages here, in one of my 42 copies of this now, it says that STEPS is moving to EastCon. Do we have a contract with that? Do we have a price and a number with that? Because STEPS had no line items. Also, in page 100 in the new copy was blank in what you emailed us to us last night, as opposed to there was information on this page 100.
It moved to 99. We just found
What
it.
happened to page 99?
It moved to 98.
On the district summary. I just noticed that.
Pardon? Okay, okay. There's a page missing. Somewhere,
Yeah,
something
100
got
moved
moved
to
back,
99.
but there is no STEPS budget, and on one of those circle pie graph sheets, it said, that I read something from earlier, it said that EastCon, here, page
It did say
24. It says, out-of-district tuition, regular and sped, and there's a number, or 16.3% due to new EastCon former STEPS and Pathways Catapult tuitions.
Page 24?
Page 24. So we had no breakdown at all on STEPS anywhere, so I don't know what those numbers entail, like tuition.
So we
what
added
is
money
tuition?
we added money for STEPS. We
Okay.
added money for STEP in the budget. What we did for STEP is that we don't want to do STEPS by ourselves, and I explained that before.
Right.
We wanted to do it with other school districts,
Right.
with EastCon and other school districts. So we did add money for STEPS in the budget, over $250,000 for STEPS in the budget. But next year, the strategy is that we can't afford to have it by ourselves. We need to have it with some other school district and with EastCon in order to pay for this.
But Tracy's question is there a contract?
Is there
We're not
a
there yet.
contact?
Right,
or-
we're not-
right.
we're working
We're not
on
there
it.
yet.
Working
We're
on
not there yet. We're working with them, how that would look, but we don't have a contract yet.
I think it's, in my opinion, fairly cut and dry. They can go to EastCon, or they can come back to the high school. No other district has this extra expense burdened on them. when their students leave their high school, they either go to an adult ed program or something like that, or they choose to come back to the high school at some point. And that to me seems like money that could be spent better other places.
So let's go back to a couple things that I want to point out. Number one, there are our students, we have to educate them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they are Windham Public School students, we like them or not, and we have to educate them. We felt this year that the high school is not the best place for them because they're coming from a different environment that requires different structure. For next year, and so we will throw into this, August, we have to open this. So for next year, no, we have time to plan. We already started the conversation with EastCon, looking at what programs they have, looking at what kids can go there, how can they be serviced. So we already know that for next year, we will not have the model that we have this way. It will not cost us this amount of money because we want to use all the other resources that we have to make sure that the kids can receive that education. You're right. Some kids may have to come to the high school because we may not be able to place all of them. But we don't have a contract yet because actually we're still in conversation with EastCon. Actually, we have a meeting. It's tomorrow. When is the meeting, Johnny? Tomorrow? Oh, Thursday. Thursday? Next week. Okay, so we've been in conversation with them over and over. We've been in conversation with them about what the location would look with them. And so we will have this by the end of the year, but it's not a process that is over overnight.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Murphy?
Well, there is one difficulty with trying to actually sort out some of the details, like the questions that Mrs. Lambert raises, is that this is not a full funds budget.
Right. Correct.
So there's about $14 million worth of budget that we're not seeing, and that we don't ask the Board of Finance to look at or the taxpayers to vote on. But when you say, well, we're going to move these positions to a grant, then the number kind of vanishes from here, and there's a question about, okay, where did that person go? And they didn't disappear, they went into a grant. The amount of money that we're actually going to get in grants won't really be settled
We don't know.
until the legislative session ends, which may not be until midsummer. But when that happens, I would like to see a full funds budget for us to work from. I think our monthly budget reports that Mr. Doyle and I would like to be able to look at ought to include everything, not just the general funds budget, especially since some of the money that, some teachers might be paid on general funds budget or might be paid in grants, especially when the grants are called the alliance funds, which are in the grant budget, even though they're still state money that looks very much like the educational cost sharing money.
If you're interested, on page 1 in the appendix, there is at least 7 pages that detail each grant.
What page?
Each grant, page 119.
In the appendix, we gave you the description.
In the appendix, it's not only the dollar amount, it's the positions, and it's the purpose. So at least it'll give you a good idea of what
Yeah.
is being funded.
Okay.
It does, but it doesn't
And
really.
and it ties into the front where we have the all funds budget for each school. So we allocate all the grants to each location and include it on the summary page for each school. So you see not only the general funds budget, but you see the grant fund budget by personnel line, benefit line, and other expenses, which will be either Title I, Title II for each one of the schools, the elementary schools. It could be Commissioners Network for the high school. It can be Alliance for a lot of different schools. But if you want to go pour through here, this is a good description of how many people, what type of positions, what the grant purpose is, and it tells you whether it's federal, state, or local.
I know it's there, but it's not really lined up with the rest of the budget. And
But we're talking about moving forward. You've made the
yeah.
point. You made the point, Murph. Anybody else want to ask any questions? Or is there any other discussion before we vote on the budget? Because we still have to vote on the capital budget, and we have a grievance. So, Any further discussion? The motion that's on the floor is to approve a budget to present to the Board of Finance,
49,903,900, or 252.
which is a 4.02%
Increase over
last
the,
year's.
So the
approved
packet,
budget.
the one in your packet is not the correct one. So the one is, Janet, did we change the one in the book?
She didn't update it.
He just used the exact number.
Well, let's use the exact number.
He just used the exact number that's in the budget.
Yeah, we're gonna use the one in the book.
Correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yep.
Yeah, Dr. Sulda said it correctly.
Okay. So the motion's been made, it's been seconded, we've had some discussion. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the budget? Opposed? Budget passes. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the capital budget, the one that was handed out to us this evening. It was also emailed out, but there's a nice, clean copy that was put at our places this evening. I'll entertain a motion.
So what exactly is the proposed number for fiscal year 2019-20?
$1,750,000.
Proposed number for, no, for what?
No, I don't think so.
2.9.
Looks like 2,970,000.
$2,970,000 for 2019-2020.
2020?
I must have had just a page total, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
Cool.
Yes.
For the sake of discussion, I move that we accept the budget. We're already discussing without a motion.
I second it.
Well, he just made a motion.
No, he didn't. He just asked a question.
I just asked the question.
Okay, so you're making the
I'm making the motion
motion?
so we can ask the question.
Right, and then who seconded it? Mary or
Didn't hear the
Tracy?
motion.
Tracy.
Janet didn't hear the motion.
The motion was that we accept the capital budget.
$2,970,000.
The question.
To accept the capital.
$2,970,000. That's
$2,970,000 capital budget.
Capital budget. I made the motion for the sake of discussion.
And Tracy seconded it. So now we're on to discussion. Discussion. Mark?
Two basically general questions. What do the stars mean that are by the various items? And on the last page, we have the legends, which I recall many years ago we put in there, so we had an understanding of why these items were done, whether
Right.
they were, and yet there's no legend.
No legend, there's no numbers next to them.
So what do the stars means, and why didn't we use the legend?
Well, good question. See, in the far left-hand column, there are stars next to
Certain
some of the items. Is there an explanation for that? Anybody know?
Those are some of them that
It
were.
looked like security items on
that
the middle school.
We're done already. Those were items that were done at the done. And if you said why we
Okay.
missed, we made a decision today to take away some columns to make it more cleaner and clearer for people to understand.
Okay, so the starred items have already been accomplished, and the legend is in the columns that fell off. Okay.
All right, that's a good,
And the legend what?
the legend on the last page for
whether-
capital projects always tells you what is legally mandated by the state, whether the project
Come from
is legally
2011.
required to correct this health and safety code violation
Well,
and
the-
things of that sort.
The other one didn't have it.
But what was pointed out was, what was handed out to us tonight does not have that legend with it.
The other one never had it either. None of the other ones ever had it.
So that's the answer on the stars, and the legend isn't there. Mark, did you have something else you wanted to
No, I
say?
just,
Pardon?
no, thank you, no.
Murphy, was there something, you had your hand up?
Yes,
But that's in the next.
I think we will regret not adding the roof of the Windham Middle School to this proposal. Basically, this document proposes deferring replacing the roof of the Windham Middle School until 2021. And,
Placing the roof on the middle school?
I'm sorry, the Windham Center School.
Oh, I'm like, I was just done.
Windham Center School. So, I mean, we've gone back and forth in the Planning and Design Committee meetings, depending on which month we were in, about whether the North Windham roof or the Windham Center roof was actually in worse shape, which means that they're both in bad shape. And I was here when the roof in the Natchog School gave way and led to a much more expensive proposition than we would have had to have dealt with had the town responded to the need to replace that roof probably 2 or 3 years sooner, when people were well aware of the fact that that roof was in trouble and needed to be replaced. So, all it's going to take is a few larger than expected snowstorms, and we're going to regret having delayed the Windham Center roof. I would love to get some support to increase this thing by $1.5 million.
And when are you suggesting we do this? What year?
I'm suggesting that instead of proposing.
Are you making a motion, Murphy?
Not unless there are other people that share my concern.
Yeah, amending the motion, I mean.
Well, all right.
No, you can ask Mark to amend the motion.
All right. So,
You're offering a friendly amendment, or not?
all right. I'll offer it as a friendly amendment to add $1,500,000 to replace the roof on the Windham Center School in the 1920 year.
It's up to Mark to decide whether he wants to accept that.
Well, actually, no, I would not accept that friendly amendment. 2 reasons. One of which I think it's just too much to ask. We're just asking far too much money of the town folks, even though you feel it needs to be done. And the second, I have to have some faith in my administrative staff members who put this together, who decided that roof could wait 1 more year. We've had this, every time this has come up, Murphy, you've brought up that issue, and it keeps coming back. If I can't trust my building superintendent to judge the life of that roof to go for 1 more year, then I'm not sure why I need to have my administrative staff. So, no, I can't see adding that to this year's,
Okay.
this capital plan.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mary, and then Tracy, and then Mike.
It's brief because it's now a moot point, but I really think the roofs should be done as soon as possible.
Okay. Tracy.
Yes. In here, it's $20,000 for replaced front marquee sign, and that was approved last year and put into capital improvement last year.
What school are you looking at?
High school.
High school.
And I know because
We don't have anything for the high school for this year.
Yeah, but she's wondering why she thought it was in last
It
year.
was approved last year, it's in last year approval. So
It's
it was
on there.
approved.
Right.
Yeah. So
But
this
where
year
is
only
that
have.
money? Is it just sitting with the town?
No, yes, it's sitting within town. So what you have here is for 1920. So if that was approved, that money's already there.
Along with the $25,000 to remove $10,000 gallon.
For Natchog.
But all of that's going to get moved into the high school renovation project, right?
Well, some people will say, why spend that amount of money with a marquee for the high school when you want to have a new renovated high school in the next couple of years?
Why is there on the second to last page, they're not numbered, I'm sorry. And can we spell check this, please, before we present it? Town council. Maintenance shed facility garage, $30,000, and then $30,000. So if the $20,000 in the high school was already allocated under total cost, why is it $30,000 and $30,000?
No, it's only
side by
30,000.
side?
I don't see where you say 30.
It's the third column down.
So it's total cost, 30,000. Total cost.
2019-20
Right.
is 30,000 for a maintenance shed facility garage.
Wasn't that budgeted already?
There was money budgeted for that shed, but this is the money that we need to finish it. There was money budgeted for that, right?
How many to
This
finish
is
the
additional.
To
shed?
finish it.
Okay.
Okay, and then there was one more thing. The middle school.
Quelle heure est-il?
Where's the roof thing? Yeah, the roof thing.
The middle school?
Yeah, didn't you point it out? And say it wasn't completed?
That was on
Oh, the star
That's the
says
Windham
that it's
Center.
completed, and so there's a star next to replace roof and additional solar in Windham Center, which is the third to last page. The third page in, the middle page. At the bottom, it says replace roof and additional solar, and there's an asterisk next to it. The asterisk should probably get
Couldn't be
removed.
correct, right.
Right.
Yeah, it needs to be removed.
Oh, why, because it wasn't done? Same thing with the principal's office, is that completed?
North Windham
Or is it in this year's budget? Those asterisks have to mean something else.
Yeah. We should check into those asterisks.
Okay. The principal officer is in this year, 1920.
Right, so there shouldn't be-
Anything else, Tracy?
I think that's it for now.
Mike?
We just got this today, too.
Yeah, we just got this today, and looking at it, there's asterisks all over the place, stuff that hasn't been done. And my question is, one, on these numbers, where are these numbers coming from? Because they just look so off. And two, I understand that it's really, it's going to be a burden on people to do these two roofs. But what's the cost going to be if we let the roof go and we wait 3 years like we did with Natchog? Because we don't want to be stuffing kids in, the same situation that we did through, the last time I was on the board. There was big problems there. So we know there's an issue. They're town buildings. There's got to be something out there that we can do. And to clarify what the asterisks are and where these numbers are coming from, because they are just.
So let me answer your first question. The numbers are coming from the plan that the previous director facilitated this. These numbers are coming directly from him, and today we verify those numbers. We asked him to verify those numbers that we thought were low, so we verify the number needs to be higher. So the numbers are coming directly from him. The roof of Windham Center, we're happy to put it in the budget, but the delay has been on the board that cannot make up their mind if they put one or they put up two. You guys tell us what to do. This discussion and go back and forth. Do we put two? Do we put one? We're happy to put both of them. We're happy to put one. You guys have to make a decision if you want us to put both of them.
See, part
Yeah,
of
answer
part
that,
of the
Mr. Chair.
context of the roof replacement is that you will apply to the state
Right.
school SDE, and they're going to probably give us a grant that supports 80% of the roof. That the town would pay 20%, or 79.6% is the state's piece, and then the remainder would be the town's piece. So if you have $1 million roof, the town would be supporting 200,000, and the state would be providing $800,000 in the form of a grant.
And I think that's the conversation that they didn't know if the town would be supporting both.
Well, yeah, you look at this, we're talking changing a roof and protecting a structure, or changing some floor tiles for the same price at another school in a kitchen. That's, okay, yeah, you're going to go another year with some bad floor tiles in your kitchen, but you're not destroying a structure that's going to cost us triple in, the money in 3 years. It's just moving stuff around. I know we can't afford it all, but let's, pick what we can afford and what needs to be done, the priorities.
But if they want to put it, they can vote, we can put it, we can change it.
Tracy?
So the discussion that's come out of our committee meetings is that, and Tyler Griffin, who sits on the Board of Finance, sits in those too, giving him a printout of when all the roofs were replaced and stuff like that. What we thought to do is, it doesn't happen, we don't say right now we're going to replace the roofs this summer, and it's immediately going to happen. It's a 2 or 3 year process. So we can put it in capital improvement, get a building committee, and talk to the Board of Finance and the town, and Tyler has been helping to facilitate this. This year add one roof, next year add the other, and see if we can get a 2-for-1 price from a contractor. While he has all of his guys out here, they're 2 schools near each other even, can we get both roofs done for a little bit of savings to the town and the district? So the plan was to put them in sequential years, this year and next year, and then make it one building committee. Get the paperwork started saying we intend to add it to next year's capital improvement, and then see if we can get both roofs done for a discount.
As like a two-part project.
Treat it as a two-part project, which is exactly how we did the middle school in Sweeney when we did the microgrid. It was a microgrid, and then we added on the roof. That way, we wouldn't have to take all the solar panels off the middle school to put the solar panels, to do the new roof and put them back on at an added expense. So we're looking at a fiduciary reason for doing this. And Mr. Donaldson, when he was still in the district, and Mr. Harris, when he comes to my school planning and design committee meetings, have said that the North Windham School is by far more urgent than the Windham Center School. The Windham Center's been a few holes that need patching, and they don't anticipate that getting any worse in the near future. Silktown has come out and taken a look at both.
Right. I mean, I agree with the two roofs, getting the discount. But in my opinion, would be do the two roofs at the same time, not years. And if one contractor can't handle to do the two roofs at the same time, then maybe that's the wrong contractor.
Right.
Because these are not big roofs.
We thought to put them in sequential years would be the best way to get it through the town, too.
I think if we let the town know, remind them of what happened a few years ago with Natchog and the situation we're in, and we may lose some funding because of neglect to the building and the other destruction that damage is going to cause.
Okay. Ineligible.
Right.
Is that it, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Murphy, Jaime, then Mark. And
I'd like to amend the motion to $4,470,000.
What?
To what?
I'm proposing to amend the motion to $4,470,000. That would add $1.5 million to do both roofs. So I need a second.
No.
Is there a second on amending the motion to add in the roof?
Second.
Second by Mary.
It was Mark's motion, how can you amend
I thought
it?
he has to agree.
You can amend the motion.
Yeah.
It's an amendment. You have to vote on the amendment separately from the motion.
Right. So there's a motion on the floor to amend the motion that's on the floor to add 1.5 million to the dollar amount to do the roof, both roof projects in the next year. Okay. Well, I mean to put that roof project back in that column.
The two roofs being Windham.
North Windham and Windham Center. So rather than do them North Windham first, then Windham Center, we would move the Windham Center one back into the 2019-2020 column. That's the motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Do we know if the numbers are accurate?
Yes, to the best of our...
we adding 1.5 million, and that would cover the two of them?
No, one.
No, it would be 3 million for two.
Each one would be 1 point, so it would be 3 million.
Yes.
So don't we get any savings if we're doing the two of them?
We don't know that until we go out to
We don't
bid.
know that until you try and do it. And I
You actually do that,
To
okay.
speak to the motion that's on the floor.
Okay.
Murphy.
I would like to speak.
Can you
All
make
right,
it
so,
quick?
well, I would just like to point out that you don't actually bond until you spend money. Is that correct? So even if...
Well, you bond after the roof is complete. You just use borrow short-term in the meantime.
Okay, so, but you actually do the borrowing as the work is done, right? So the fact that we do this doesn't actually spend any, if it's done according to the plan that Tracy just proposed, if that's what it takes to actually get it done, you wouldn't spend any more of the taxpayers' money any sooner if we did it this way. It would just that we would commit to doing both of the roofs rather than saying, well, we'll commit to one now and we'll hope to commit to the other one later. Is that correct, financially?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, we'd only bond the 20% that's our piece.
Yes.
So, and that would be done at the time of the completion, when it gets into service. In the meantime, you just borrow short-term.
Okay.
At 1.5%.
So, okay, any other discussion of the motion, the amendment that's on the floor? All those in favor of the amendment that's on the floor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? Abstentions? One abstention. Motion carries. So we have an amended motion on the floor for, what's the dollar amount again?
3 million.
4 million.
$4,470,000.
$4,470,000.
It sounds big, but.
Is there any further discussion?
May I just say one thing?
Yes, Tracy.
With the issues that we're having in other financial places in this district, and asking for a 4% increase, I think asking for another $4 million on top of that, including another set of books, when we still haven't approved the first set of books, is just asking for our budget to be voted down, and that's why I'm going to vote against it. It's just asking the Board of Finance to cut our budget arbitrarily. It's just looking for trouble, and that's the reason I'm going to vote against it. I have no problem with doing both groups at the same time, but if we're looking to stay under 4% in our regular budget, why would we inflate our capital improvement budget when we don't really have to this year? So that's why I'm going to vote against it. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay. Mike?
No, I'm voting for, I want the 2 roofs. However, we need to cut back on some other things on that capital budget. I can't vote for a full, $4 million budget. We've got to cut back on a few things, that maybe we would like to have, but we don't need at this time. So I think that capital budget needs to be reviewed.
What are you proposing?
Well, we're going to look at, things like the floor tiles. We're going to get accurate numbers on the removal of the oil tanks, things like that. The air conditioning number at North Windham. Just the numbers there. I'm not saying not do the projects, but let's,
prioritize.
Prioritize and, $800,000 for the air conditioning in that school.
We received confirmation today we verify the replacement and removal and replacement of the oil tank. They're about $150,000. To remove them is much cheaper, but to remove them and replace them, and that figure, we verify that today, came in today, is $150,000 per tank. We verify that today.
DEEP has required we do this, and the state. We've already filed 2 extensions on removing the oil tanks.
Our extension
so they
until
have to come out of the ground.
Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken to the motion that would like to speak to the motion before I call on Murphy? Okay, Murph.
Okay, just that. All right, to Mr. DeSanti's last point, the $800,000 in North Windham air conditioning is in the budget for 2021-22.
Yeah, right.
We have time to think about that and get better numbers if we need them. And while yes, the total does sound big, but remember, of that total, $3 million is roofs that would be reimbursed at roughly 80%, a little short of 80%, but essentially we're asking the town taxpayers to bond for $600,000, not $3 million. So it looks like a bigger number than it really is.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor of the capital, to move the capital improvement budget to, with the 4.9 million.
It's 4.4, what is, I got it right here.
$4,470,000.
It's on my phone.
$4,470,000.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. All those against? 1, 2, 3.
Still abstain.
Abstention? Ilda? Okay, the motion carries. So now we're on to, thank you, everybody. Now we're on to public comment. Is there anybody who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session
For personnel matters.
discussion of personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed to going into executive session?
Mike's being spiteful.
Mary, did you vote?
Keep sending
To
me
go
letters.
into
Executive session. Mary's in favor. Okay.
opposed.
Yeah, use the restroom for now.
Yes,
I just held back,
sure.
but yeah.
I didn't mean to say that.